stressful situation. You know, it's sort of like
Success. Great, thanks, Sarah. So recording in progress, and then we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. So for those who have just jumped on, if you want to use the chat to introduce yourselves, we'd love to know who's joining us, what organization or entity or project you are seeking funds for, and if you're interested in the media arts grant opportunity or the traditional arts grant opportunity, just so we have an idea of who is with us. So with that, I'm gonna just jump real quick into an overview of the two grant opportunities, and then we'll pass it over to Bill. So we're here today to talk about the media arts grant opportunity, which is in place to help tell and share the stories, especially the untold stories, about Montana's arts, culture, and history. The Fund's Media Arts Program will provide small grants up to $2,000 to support the production, education, distribution, or presentation of media arts in Montana. Media arts include photography, film, video, audio, multimedia, and digitally generated and distributed media. So Bill is going to dive much deeper into what the committee is looking for the Media Arts Program, but that is one grant opportunity. The second grant opportunity is the Traditional and Folk Arts Grant Opportunity. And this is also established to help folks tell and share stories about Montana's arts, culture, and history, and to learn specifically about traditional art forms and cultures of our lovely home, Montana. The Fund's Traditional and Folk Arts Program also provides grants up to $2,000 to support the building awareness, involvement, and the preservation of traditional and folk arts in Montana. And I will share, I've had just the opportunity to learn really what traditional and folk arts is. I'm interested to sit in on this conversation because this was my first exposure to just a really unique way of thinking about traditional and folk arts that has expanded my knowledge about the work that's happening here in Montana. So with that, I think that is just our introduction and orientation. Thank you, everybody, for jumping in on the chat. And Bill, would you like to expand on those, please?
Sure. Hi, everybody, and thank you for participating. This grant program has been in existence, well, this is its 7th year, and we've given out a handful of grants each year. And we hope that you will take something away from this program that will be helpful to you. And it's the first time we've done this, so we'll kind of learn together on it. The traditional arts in Montana had a staff person working with the Montana Arts Council for many years. That kind of stopped a number of years ago, and although they've been having a part-time staff person under contract for a while, there really hasn't been that full-time presence. So that's a struggle that we have in the state. It's one that I hope that the work that this program does will help keep a focus on the traditional arts in Montana. So the purpose of the program, might as well start from the 10,000 foot level, is to build awareness, involvement, and preservation of the traditional folk arts in Montana. The program primarily funds, and much of what I'm going to say is available in the grant guidelines on the MCF website. So you can don't worry about taking a whole bunch of notes. You just can go and print that out. That'd be very helpful to you. The grants primarily fund the involvement of living traditional artists or recognized bearers of traditional culture in public programs. And to if you don't have a lot of knowledge about the traditional arts, I suggest that you might Google the National Endowment for the Arts Folk and Traditional Arts Program to explore some examples that support, preserves, and honors cultural traditions rooted in community, heritage, and occupation. They have a fact sheet and a lot of descriptions about the kinds of things that the folk arts involve. So in terms of a definition, the traditional arts are a creative expression, basically, that originate in distinct and identifiable groups defined by ethnicity, tribe, geography, language, or occupation. So the Blackfeet tribe, the Hmong community in the Bitterroot, the Butte Irish involved in the mining in Montana, the ranching community, and the incredible leather work that a lot of people do in that area would be the kinds of things we're thinking about. These arts are deeply connected to the group's identity and reflects their values, beliefs, and aesthetics. And they're often passed down through generations in families or through elders, usually through informal instruction. So it's not like you go to school to learn your arts activity. And I should say that the artistic creativity in the contemporary arts, illustrative arts are fine. And if you're working in that area, that's great, but that's not what this program is about. And so for an application to be eligible, it really has to tick those boxes. So what are the traditional arts may include are fine handcraft and decorative arts, dance and music, poetry and storytelling, and foodways, and local architecture. What we fund are exhibits, performances, lecture demonstrations, apprenticeship programs, educational components of festivals or powwows, community celebrations, school and community learning programs, and print or audiovisual documentation of the traditional arts. So as you can see, it's a pretty broad group of activities and artistic focus. The grant description of all the grants funded by this program are available on MCF's website. And if you just want to take a look at them, we sure hope you will do so. Here's an example of one of the things that we funded. A grant was made to a mainstream performing arts presenter in Montana to feature a female Métis fiddler who learned her art through mentors in her community, and which reflect the history and culture of this multi-heritage people. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Métis, but they are a mixed heritage group that originated in the upper Midwest between the intimate interaction between French and English fur trappers and explorers and the Chippewa Cree people. And they became a very, very important economic force in both Canada and in Montana. It was a wonderful application because the presenter talked a lot about who this person was and where she learned her traditional skill. 4 things that you might want to keep in mind as you consider an application to this program. Is what is the traditional group that is involved? Is it occupational? Is it tribal? Is it another group? What are the traditional art forms that come out of that particular group? There may be many, but you're going to be focusing probably on one. Who is the traditional artist and how did she or he learn their art form? That would be important to show some knowledge about the transmission of culture that's so very important to this program. And then what is the public program in which this artist will participate? We're really interested in helping that group maintain this cultural tradition and pass it on. We are also interested in sharing that with people outside the group so they gain an appreciation of the variety of groups who are producing traditional art in Montana. So moving over to media arts, the purpose of that program is to help Montanans tell and share stories, especially the untold ones, about Montana arts, culture, and history. We fund documentary productions, media arts education programs, and the public presentations of documentaries about arts, culture, and history in Montana. So in other words, a local media arts presenter might want to show a variety of documentaries in that about those subjects, and perhaps even involve the media makers in the presentation of those films or videos as well. When we talk about documentary productions, we're really dealing with actual and factual, historical, contemporary issues, ideally from multiple points of view, also the institutions and people involved. Their purpose is to educate, inform, communicate, persuade, raise consciousness, or satisfy curiosity. Materials are selected and arranged from what already exists and involve recording real people in actual locations using natural light and ambient sound. So this is a pretty conservative documentary definition. Obviously, if you're dealing with an historical documentary, you're not going to really be able to rely on living individuals. You're going to have to go to historic material. Although if it's an oral history piece, there may be people who still are living. The media that we will look at include photography, film and video, audio and radio broadcasts, multimedia, and digitally created and distributed media. So if you're doing a documentary production, you can apply in three areas. One is for pre-production costs, which would include research and identification of interviewees, location and script development, identification of resources and personnel, and funding and distribution avenues. Secondly, you could apply for the actual production costs, the documentation of people, locations, and materials. And thirdly, you could look at post-production costs, visual and sound editing, narration, titles and subtitles, and distribution. As you're only able to apply in one category each year, if you have a long time frame, you could apply for each of these categories over a 3-year span. The media arts education is the second category under the media arts program, and this is the involvement of professional media artists in school or community artist in residency programs, which encourage the creation of mini documentaries about Montana arts, culture, and history. So these are really community-based training programs. And thirdly, for those that are media arts presenters, we can fund festivals or public programs, which are presentation of documentaries and Montana arts, culture, and history, which may also include the professional media artist involved. So, costs might be the rental of the media art production as well as the travel cost for the artist involved in its production. So one example in the media arts education program was funded last year, and this was the MAPS Media Institute, which is in Hamilton, and it's a nonprofit organization dedicated to empowering Montana's youth through professional media arts instruction, mentorship, and community engagement. And what this grant was for was to ensure that Native Indigenous youth in Fort Belknap continue to receive culturally responsive, high-quality instruction from professional Native Indigenous artists. And the project strengthens youth voices, honors community knowledge, and uses media arts to preserve, share, and celebrate the stories that matter most to them. So that's basically probably more than you ever wanted to know about all the ins and outs of the program.
Fantastic. Okay. Thanks so much, Bill. Here's what I'm going to walk us through right now, which is most of you probably are already connected to the website and have taken a look at the portal, but I just want to do a quick orientation to that, and then we'll open it up for questions. So, Sarah, would it be all right if I shared my screen? Great. Okay. All right. Does everybody see the Montana Community Foundation website where it says grants available by impact area? Thumbs up. Thanks for that. All right. So this is just, you can find this on the main menu up at the top, grants and funding opportunities. And then you scroll down and you will see the William B. Pratt Endowment right there. You click on that. This is where we had information about our webinar. This is where the grant guidelines for both grant opportunities are and then the Apply Now funding. So we use Foundant for our grant application software. So you'll have to create an account. Once you create an account, you'll get into a screen that looks like this that has all available opportunities at the Montana Community Foundation for funding. You'll see the William B. Pratt Endowment Fund here for media arts. And then you'll see down on the lower left of this quadrant here, you'll see the traditional and folk arts. You will see also these little buttons for the preview. This is where you can preview the questions for the application. So before you start an application, you could go ahead and look up what is actually going to be asked of me. And you can sort of sketch out the outline for your application. You can be in touch with Sarah and I if something already is coming to the surface for you. It's like, I need more information about this or questions before you even start your application process. So that is just, it's all pretty self-explanatory. If you've ever applied for a grant before, this is probably going to feel pretty easy. If this is your first time using software like this to apply for a grant, please reach out if you have any issues. If you run into character limits or something's not uploading, like Sarah and I are here to help you with that, and know that that can be one of the more frustrating pieces of applying for funding. So please don't let it get in your way. But this is just to give you a quick preview of what the application looks like from the software end. And then I'm gonna figure out how to stop sharing my screen one of these days. Well, you guys, this is just me really showing off my tech skills here. Okay. Well, Sarah,
there should be a toolbar at the bottom of the screen. It says share.
I see it. It's just telling me what I want to share, and I don't want to share anything anymore. I'll figure that out, everybody. But while I hope you all just take a second, think of questions that you've got for Bill or for us on our end.
Enter your questions into the chat. You can do that, or you can raise your hand and we can have you come on and you can ask. I do have a handful that we can go through a little bit too, if we're ready to launch into that.
I might say, this is Bill speaking, and just for those of you who have been involved in grant speaking for a while, you know that one of the most important things is to connect your needs with those of the funder. And so that kind of raises its ugly ugly head under the eligibility criteria. So we know that people's time is you're very busy, and that there's not as much money out there as we would like, and so there are those pressures. So we don't want to encourage applications that really don't meet the eligibility criteria, just to save time and energy, not only on your end of the funding equation, but also for the panelists, the committee that's going to review these applications. Do you have any concerns or questions about whether your idea is eligible? Well, that's the first, I guess, fence to jump over. I strongly encourage you to talk with Kylie to present your case, perhaps, or to get some feedback. And she doesn't have the answer immediately, because some of these programs might be a little arcane. They may be not the usual thing that we deal with. But she will get an answer back to you one way or another.
We have a question in the chat. I'll go ahead and read that, and Bill, you can address that, from John, who's asking for clarification. Bill, you mentioned earlier that applicants can only apply in one category. He's asking if you can clarify, and then can we apply for multiple and then only be awarded in one category? Or are you trying to cut down on the extra work of multiple grant applications and limiting applicants?
Yeah, you can make one application per year. So if you're in the media arts, you could apply for pre-production, production, or post-production, or a media arts education, or the presentation of media arts. The one area where this is a little bit flexible is if you are working with an established 501c3 organization, say the Myrna Loy here in Helena, Performing and Media Arts Center. They might be able to serve as fiscal sponsor for more than one media artist. So they could apply for one application that would benefit their organization, and they could also apply for a number of as a fiscal sponsor for a number of other artists. That hasn't happened yet, but we wanted to provide that flexibility because some artists they don't have a 501c3 nonprofit organization that they work with. Some do. Hopefully that helps.
All right, the next question up is, would something that celebrates a community's Latino culture fit within the traditional folk arts program? How would something like that?
Is this a media arts program?
It looks like a traditional folk arts program.
I would focus on one or another traditional Latino artists within that community, because we're really trying to drill down into that particular traditional art. I mean, the idea is great. I mean, having a focus on Latino arts in a particular community and share visual and performing arts and foodways and that kind of thing is a very good idea in my estimation, anyway. Whether it would resonate with the committee is another one. I would focus narrowly on one or two traditional artists, because you have to establish their bona fides and how they learn their work and all of that. And space is limited in an application. So you may have to look in other places for other funding to augment the project. but it would be something we'd be interested in.
Great. The next question is Helen with the Montana Natural History Center. They're working on a mural by Salish artist Aspen Decker. It would be ledger style and share the story of the traditional camas harvest and bake. Would this be considered?
What is the traditional art form? That would be the first question that we have.
Helen can tell us more about it if you want to hear a little bit more.
Well, I don't want to get in depth on any particular application right now, but I'm just thinking the traditional arts are the foodways, right? That you're referencing here, right? The camas harvest am I correct there?
Yes.
So the
Correct.
focus really needs to be on the camas harvest and the artists involved, or the traditional cultural barriers involved in that activity. That would be the focus, not so much the mural. You see where I'm trying to get to here? We're looking at the actual transmission of the cultural activity using the living artist involved in that activity.
Understood. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other, there's some other questions here.
I think that's all in the chat. If anyone wants to go off mute and put a question out, you're welcome to do that as well. Sometimes I know that when there's nuance required for these, it can involve a little bit of explanation. If I'm missing anything in the chat, also let me know. But Jennifer?
Yeah, my name's Jennifer. I just was typing that fast enough. Just can you speak a little bit more about the media arts grant and the documentary component? Just based on your last answer, does the documentary need to be about an artist or about traditional arts? Or is the notion that artists are involved and the documentary is about historical pieces of Montana history enough? It feels like there's a nuance there also that I want to make sure I'm not missing.
In the traditional arts area, you could do an audiovisual production about that particular traditional arts, okay? And you would need to have the involvement not only of the traditional artist or artists, obviously, but a professional media artist. In the documentary area, it doesn't have to be about traditional arts. It can be any arts, history, or cultural topic germane to Montana, but you do have to have the involvement of a professional media artist. We're trying to deal with a quality issue here. I mean, a lot of people are making productions with their cameras and stuff. It's great, but what we're looking for is a professional level of production. And even in the media education area, we've got to have a professional artist, media artist involved in that. Of course, we're not funding the student films, films or videos. We're funding the education program, and that we're looking at the highest level of quality that we can get and that people can afford.
Thanks.
Did you want to have some tips for a strong application? Or?
Yeah, I think if there's any other questions, again, go ahead and come off mute or put them in the chat. We're here to help you think through this opportunity. But I think just, Bill, yeah, if you want to highlight a few tips for a strong application, and then we'll go ahead and close if there are no questions that come up in the meantime.
I think the eligibility criteria, I think, is a primary hoop to jump through. In the media area, one thing that I didn't mention, but I don't know why I forgot, was that we're also encouraging applications that involve professional media artists who are women, tribal members, rurally based, or from populations that can be considered underserved in this state, in Montana. That doesn't mean that's the only people we would look for applications from, but it's just something to consider because often media arts comes from industrial based, education based, urban areas, and we want to expand beyond that as best we can. But we want to make it as inclusive as we can. One of the things that we found, the people submitting budgets sometimes get a bit overwhelming, and it's important to focus specifically on the project budget. And we are also looking for an organizational budget, but we don't need to have an incredible amount of detail in the organizational budget. So remember, have some empathy for the people who are going to read the applications. I think you need to show a knowledge, somewhat in-depth knowledge in the traditional arts about the arts that you're talking about and how they've evolved and the role they play within the cultural group that you're addressing. The more sophisticated you can be in that, the better your application will be received, because the people who are reviewing it are professionals in the traditional arts. Not so much artists, but have worked in the area for a long time. If for some reason you have trouble meeting the matching requirement, which is dollar for dollar, remembering that some of that could be included in already existing percentage of staffing in an organization, such as if you're going to use 10% of a executive director's time, then that 10% has a dollar equivalent of salary and benefits. And you can include that as match. If there is a real problem in making the match, discuss this issue with Kylie and try and request a waiver for a portion or even all of it. There's some rural communities are going to have a hard time coming up with the cash match, and we want to be sensitive to that. I think that's about all I really needed to say. I wish you all the best. We look forward to applications. If you decide to apply, they will be given consideration, and they will be reviewed by a professional committee, as well as by Kylie and myself. And if you have questions, I strongly encourage you to talk to her, just to ease your own mind, or to help you get direction. So thanks for
Yeah. Sarah, do you want to share our contact information and next steps?
All right. If you do have any questions, please feel free. You can email me a summary of your project so we can look it over a little bit and try to get you the best answer we possibly can for you. My email address is at the bottom. You can always call Kylie in the office, and her number is posted there. The application process, so it's running until March 31st. So we'll be looking at applications probably through April and possibly having our decision-making meeting in May, and then we'll have awardee information sent out probably early June is kind of what we're guesstimating right now.
Okay, and if you want time for more conversation, we've got some office hours with Bill scheduled for March 4th and March 11th. Again, just be in touch with Sarah or I if you have questions. And if you are feeling like you've got all the information you need, you can hop off. And if you want to stick around and ask a few more detailed questions, we've got some time for that. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, we've got two folks still on with us. Did you guys have questions about the grant opportunity that you wanted a chance to dig into? Thank you. My just stepped away from the computer. So, hi, Lenita. We'll make the recording available, but if you have any questions off the top of your head right now, this is a great opportunity to address them if you'd like.
She doesn't have a camera.
Maybe not. We'll have the recording available on the website. Okay, you can watch that and be in touch with us. You're just fine. Thank you so much. You have a great day. All right.